things. I didn't want to completely,
because like 4 hours otherwise,
that's a lot,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to I didn't want to stress myself out too much. So it was a lot. It was many years. I graduated. I was trying to think. My master's in 2012, my credential probably 2009, 2008, but I was also working full time. So it took me a little while longer. I took, a class or two here or there. I was lucky enough that I was already teaching and I was able to do my student teaching in my current classroom.
While you were getting paid, correct? Which is hard. That's, and we've talked about in this course, different positions that require internships or student teaching and that you don't get paid. And that's hard for a lot of students, especially that need income, during this time frame. So, and we're just talking about a lot of those things in this course of, weighing the pros and cons. What can you physiologically do that works for your budget as well as your family and your kind of current living situation. So,
and I was thinking, I don't want to throw you off, but
go right ahead.
Part of my job is being a job coach. And so I do work with job coaches in my program, and they have bachelor's degrees. And their job is to work with, people with special needs in the community,
coaching them, yeah.
Helping them be able to be successful in their community internships or work environment, whatever it may be. So that's also another, a position that if somebody was very interested in working with, adults with special needs or people with special needs, that, it might be something that you could, it doesn't require a tremendous amount of training. In some cases, a BA isn't even necessary. It's just, I think it's pretty cool to be able to work in the community, see the young adults or adults that could be, I keep saying young adults, and in a real world, they could be 70 and working in the community. There's nothing to say that they can't.
Well, I think that's also part of this is that what we talk a lot about in this course is most positions want experience. Well, how do you get the experience without the degrees, right? So there's different positions, like we did speak to Carlos earlier in the semester, and Carlos actually has worked with Alyssa quite closely for the last several years. And, he does have a BA, but he has a lot of different opportunities that he may not get, without a higher level degree. So it's the same thing for my students, is just kind of helping you guys to figure out, what you can do. Can you volunteer? Can you, like Alyssa had said, maybe go after you graduate with your BA to get a job coach, kind of position, something to get yourself more experience before you get into grad school, before you, get into a credential program or what have you. So, all right. Feliciana's question is, what is your favorite thing about working with people with disabilities or special needs?
I don't know. I love it. I think that they're the most amazing people in the world. I do truly believe that, everybody has a disability in some way, shape, or form, and I'm honest with my students about, my shortcomings. And I have a hearing disability. I have, I would say some executive functioning challenges, and I'm honest with them about it. So I think maybe, I don't know, I guess also just seeing progress in different ways that's not necessarily academic is really, really important to me. It's really cool. I think it's really fulfilling. I've met, I had a student many, many years ago. He's probably, I don't know, almost 30 now. And he still texts me on holidays. He still reaches out to say, Happy Mother's Day, or how are you doing, or, whatever it is. And I remember very distinctly, and he had more emotional needs. I very distinctly remember him leaving me a book, and he wrote a note on it, and he said, "Thanks for saving my life." And it's just, it's those moments and those opportunities to make connections with people, I think that are so important to me. And I granted, I understand that can happen within general education, but for some reason, these adults, these young adults, whoever, everybody that I've ever worked with, I don't know, they just have touched me in a way that I can't describe. It's kind of hard to describe why. I hope I answered that okay.
That's fine. What is something that you used to struggle with in the beginning of your career that you've accomplished now? It's a good question. That's from Natalie.
I remember my first year teaching saying I was going to save everybody. I was going to accomplish everything. I was going to fix everybody. And I realized as time went on that didn't say that, not to say that I don't try, but that I'm a little bit kinder to myself in terms of realizing that I'm only one person and that I'm human and that perfection is not possible. And, I can't do it all. And so I think that was, me starting out gung-ho, and I still say that I'm pretty passionate. I would think that people that work with me still think I'm a pretty passionate teacher, and I still really, really deeply care. And I take a lot of those cares to, home with me to process a lot of times, but I think that feeling that I was going to save the world was something that I had at the very beginning, and I don't, but I think that releases some pressure,
Sure. And this is a good segue from what we were just talking about. Hee Jung is another student of mine. She says, how do you manage to keep your patience in stressful situations? It's a good question.
It's interesting because you mentioned patience. When the first thing that people say when you introduce yourself as being a special ed teacher or working with people with special needs is, oh, you must have a lot of patience. That's typically the first thing that people will say. And I would say that generally I am a person that has a lot of patience, so that does help. I do, I do find myself, just taking deep breath, trying my best to do those kinds of things, taking deep breaths. I think in my almost 17 years, I don't think I've ever yelled at a student or a client or raised my voice. Somehow I've wanted to
yes,
do lots of things. I've wanted to, scream and run and
or quit your job.
Or strangle. So I'm just joking, but just that initial human response. But I think in the end, just reminding myself, the students that I'm working with are struggling. There's a reason why they have a behavior in the first place. There's a reason why they aren't getting along well with their peers. There's a reason why they're upset with me. There's a reason why this is happening or that's happening. And so just reminding myself of that every day, I think just helps, just to start off on that right foot.
It kind of normalizes it a little bit.
Normalizing it, having peers, having colleagues who you can vent to, who you can, cry with, who you can
yes,
yell with, and do all of those things that you can't do with the students, I think is very helpful.
Yes, we vent to each other quite a bit in different ways. And it is helpful to understand each other. We used to work at the help group for a long time. That's how we met, actually. Working for a nonprofit, we've talked about this in this course, that we also wear many, many hats, and it is stressful to wear those many hats, but to have somebody that you trust and to be able to talk to, whether that's a colleague or a partner or a friend, it really does help. I have some therapist friends also too, that I do the same and will do some talking with in a clinical sense, because some of the things, obviously my wife is not a clinician, so she deals with different things that compared to me. But it's nice to have those folks to just touch base with, or like Alyssa said, to vent and just to be able to.
And I think the boundaries is also going back to the boundaries. I think, during distance learning, it was challenging because everything was at home, and my work cell phone was at home. Everything was home. And so going back into the classroom environment, I had to remind myself, no, work cell phone stays at work. I'm very mindful to not respond to emails from parents or from students, or texts from students after my work hours. I think once, or, a couple times I have, if it was something, really pertinent or something like that. But that also is an important part of it, is having those professional boundaries for yourself, personal boundaries too.
Rachel's question is, what do you hope to contribute to the special education field?
Oh, I hope that my work really helps the community at large find value in adults with special needs. That's really what my purpose is. I think that my students deserve to work. They love working. They're excellent employees. Some of them need help and support, of course, but I think there's value in them. There's value in them having a job, making a paycheck, finding value in themselves and self-worth. So I think, when we go into the community, one of my biggest things is, it's somebody had said once, it's not community, what was the term? It's more about community participation and community inclusion, as opposed to just being there. It's not just community
integration,
presence.
It's integration.
It's not just having my students walk around the mall and have everybody say, oh, look, there's a group of adults with special needs. It's, hey, there's a group of individuals that are walking. Hey, maybe they can apply for this job, or maybe, or it's just, I find extreme value in that. And I hope that our program, that the work that I do helps our students find value in themselves, helps their families find value in their worth, and most importantly, has the community to support them in terms of what they can contribute to society.
And I think that is getting better. It's not great, but it's getting better. More companies are really investing in, DIE or DEI, either one, so diversity, equity, and inclusion, which means hiring folks with special needs. And eventually we're going to get you to do your own thing with working with these companies to hire folks with special needs in different sectors, but also like doing the job coaching on the job for these big companies that would actually benefit from having folks with special needs on their workforce. So again, it's a new thing, not new, but it's evolving. And I think that that's a good thing for right now too. All right. We have just two more questions and then we'll be done for today. So Tatum's question, this is an interesting question. She says, are parents with young adults harder to deal with, or are they easier to deal with comparatively because their kids are not children at this point?
I would say it depends.
Sure.
The vast majority of my parents are very hands-off. I don't hear from them often. I can send emails every week and get no response. So that can be good, but it can also be frustrating.
Sure.
From a teacher perspective, if you don't have, 14 parents to email back every single day or call back every single day, that takes a little bit of pressure off of you. So that's one thing. I think what's difficult is at this point, if the young adult is 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and the parent, wants them to learn something, maybe that's developmentally or cognitively not likely going to happen. I don't want to say it can't happen, but that can be challenging at that age. My boss is a very, in her mind, and I'm not saying that this is correct, but in her mind, if they're 20 years old, no amount of occupational therapy is going to, completely get rid of their disability. So she wants to be more realistic with the families. And I would say that, I do have a number of parents who I speak to almost every day or a couple times a week. It can be challenging with the parents when you see as adults that their children have a lot of potential and they don't, it's like chores and lunches. It drives me absolutely bonkers when my students come into class and they open up their lunchbox and they say, oh, my mom forgot to put this in my lunch. I said, and they're all capable.
Totally.
Who's responsible to pack your own? You should be packing your own lunch. And so it drives me crazy when the parents enable them, when the parents don't have them take responsibility for their actions, because it teaches them that just because they have a disability means that they can get away with things, and they can be dependent. And right? That's not what I teach them. I have a student who says, well, I have autism and that's how I can get away with things. No, it's not. You have autism, yes, but that doesn't mean that that's an excuse. So the parents are interesting at this age. I think that in a lot of senses it is easier because they're not as involved. And I'm a parent, so I can understand, but at the same time, it's also can be more difficult when you think about the desire that you have. And going back to that, I want my students to use the skills that they have. And sometimes the parents don't want them to.
True.
So that it kind of goes both ways, but I would say overall, it's probably a little bit easier than working with an elementary population.
Yes. In some regards. So
in most regards.
Yeah. All right. Ava Maria's question, last question too, by the way. Her question is so you're gonna have to go bring back some time in your brain here. Okay. So she says, describe a time you've encountered a major challenge at work and what you did to overcome that challenge.
I would say the most recent major challenge was taking a program that's mostly community-based and going to distance learning. That was a major stressor for everybody involved. We had a program where students were working in the community, and then all of a sudden everybody's at home. So there were a lot of tears. I'm not going to lie. There were a lot of conversations. There were a lot of, I'm going to work at Trader Joe's, which, I still think that sometimes.
That's not going to happen, by the way, but yeah.
Everybody always looks happy at Trader Joe's.
I guess so.
And, but, I think teamwork helped. I think, definitely processing together, trying to figure out together instead of just, okay, it's all on me. So
meaning with your team at work,
my team at work,
your because you have a co-teacher that you teach with. So can you describe that relationship real quick about your co-teaching?
Yeah, she and I have worked together for 6.5 years. We don't co-teach in the traditional sense, but what generally happens is if at that time when half of the students would be working in the community, the other half would be back. And so we would take turns. We would be working in the community. We would work with the students who weren't working, and then we would switch off. And so we would share lessons. We worked with each other's homeroom students. We collaborate, and we are essentially, we have become a very, very close-knit team alongside our job coaches. So I'm very grateful for that team. I think that teamwork, and if you ask any of them still today, I think they would all agree that we got each other through that. But I think being flexible was very, very important, especially when the school district and the administration kept giving different directives, sometimes every other day.
Right.
And it was like, how are we supposed to keep up with this? How am I supposed to do what's good for my students if nobody knows what's going on? So taking a step back, being flexible, problem solving, and we ultimately figured out a way to, do our best to bring the community and bring those lessons to the students.
And they did an awesome job. Just hearing Alyssa every day, at work, obviously we worked together at the time, but I never saw her teaching. Every once in a while I dropped things off at her classroom, but I never saw her teaching or hearing her teaching. And I did every single day, and getting all of her students involved on Zoom, and all of them have special needs, as well as like sometimes the families too, and getting those families involved, or other staff members that are working with those clients at home. But just being there and just being extremely patient with the online platforms, using Google Classroom. I mean, walking her kids through step by step by step of everything that they needed to do. And it was interesting to see. Obviously, it was very stressful in the beginning, but I think you guys, especially with your co-teaching and your staff that you had, you guys really worked well together to support each other and to really handle something that no one had ever dealt with before. So, and we're still coming out of the like COVID haze and still dealing with some weird things that are still happening. Still middle COVID. I don't think it's ever going to end at this point. But in general is how do we, cultivate this positive learning environment for all students
and modeling. I model regularly for my students flexibility.
Yes.
When I mess up, I let them know. I'm first to admit a mistake. I'm first to model and to show them problem solving, flexibility, just getting through challenges, apologizing. Don't be afraid to apologize. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I messed up. I'm sorry. I tried it this way and it didn't work. Thanks for being
I do that on their quizzes all the time. I mess up all the time. So I just help them and fix it. So long story short, this is a really interesting, this is our last interview, by the way, and it's interesting that it's my wife with me here, but in general, I hope you guys have really enjoyed hearing from the different speakers and the different folks this semester. And don't be afraid, Alyssa is available too. I'm going to put her work email up. So if you guys have further questions, or if you just feel a little uncomfortable to ask, on our Canvas, no problem. You can reach out to her directly. She'd be glad to talk to you guys about different things, or different positions, or even different ideas, because she's kind of moved up through the ranks in regards to what she's been doing, and the process is interesting. So please reach out if you have further questions, but thank you for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me. Good luck, everybody.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You're almost done with your semester.
Almost done. We're almost there. They have to do their project next week. So, but thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.